Hey there, aerospace students. It's time to start thinking about your summer assignment. If you haven't already gotten started, this tutorial video is a good place to start. It'll go over the two different parts of your summer assignment. The first part, assignment 1, is all about reading the aerospace textbook. The second assignment, assignment 2, called Trim Design Challenges, is all about creating a paper airplane that can complete certain challenges and then in the end come back and complete the original challenge. So let's dive in. For both assignments, you'll find that there's collapsible text, some for your resources and some for your procedures. Both assignments have the collapsible text, so if for some reason there's something that you can't find, you may need to expand that area to find it. Assignment 1 is all about your aerospace textbook. Most of the time we don't have you all read a textbook for the course that you're taking, but in this case, the textbook isn't actually very thick. It's a pretty thin textbook. It's actually a really good textbook. It's one of my more favorite textbooks I've ever read, and I've read this thing cover to cover a dozen times or more. It's got a lot of great resources in it, so the only resource that you're going to find on this assignment is your access to this textbook digitally. When you click on this link, it'll open up a Google Drive folder that looks like this. It's the only folder that you're going to have access to, and I want to break this down a little bit. Aerospace from the ground up as an entire PDF file. Then you'll find that each chapter is provided as its own PDF file, even all the way down to the index, glossary, and preface. There's also Google Slides for each chapter, and each of these provide a bulleted summary. It's not the full chapter, but it does help you if you're utilizing this as part of your preparation for the latter part of this assignment. Let's take a look at a few of these files just to help you get familiar with it. This first file is where I've taken the individual chapters, combined them all into one file. So this file is pretty big. If you were to scroll through this, you can see it's 316 pages. It's every single chapter, every part of every chapter. There may be a few pictures here or there that we don't have the copyright access to, so you may see that they're not there, but you do get most of them. It's easy for you to open this using an Adobe Preview. If you want to download all of this, I would highly encourage that you do so, but you can also look at it right here if this doesn't bother you to read through it. If you do choose to open this up as an Adobe file and you do it through the individual chapters, there's actually bookmarks on them that you can view. Let's assume you have downloaded the PDF files. Here you can see that I've downloaded the Aerospace Engineering from the ground up combined files. This is every chapter, index, glossary, all of them put together. And I've downloaded each individual chapter as well as the glossary, index, and preface. I'm going to open up chapter 1 using Adobe Reader. If I pull out the side panel, I have access to bookmarks, and the bookmarks allow me to jump from each major section to the next for that particular chapter. A handy way of going through it, and sometimes PDFs, Adobe in particular, is a little easier to read. You can zoom in and see things a little clearer. This is up to you. If you know how to use Reader, great. If not, it's still totally accessible through Google Drive. You just have to scroll. But if you are accessing it through Adobe or through Reader, you can use the up and down arrows to go from one page to the next. Very useful tool. Hopefully you'll find it as useful as I do. If you're accessing the PDF file that has all the chapters together, that first one, you will find that bookmarks are not there, but thumbnails are, if that's useful for you. And of course you can always jump to the page that you want by highlighting this and changing the number to the page that you'd like to go to. But keep in mind that in this particular case, page 3, 4, 5, whatever you choose to jump to, is not going to be the numbered page, because this also includes the preface, the index, the glossary. You'll want to figure out what page you want to get to. You can also use the page up and down features just like you can before, and of course the zoom function as well. This is up to you how you want to go about using this. Boils down to what makes it easier and more accessible for you. I just want to be able to provide you with some options when it comes to reading a textbook. Digitally, it can be a little distracting to have a bunch of fancy things with it. So the easiest, simplest way is Google Drive. But if you need some of these helpful tools, then do absolutely use Reader. You'll just have to download it onto whatever machine you're using or a flash drive. You also have access to Google Slides that break each chapter down with bulleted information. It looks like this. Same background, same layout, bulleted information just like you see here. This is more of a summary or a quick review if you need to before you take the quiz parts of this assignment. Occasionally you may have a figure in here or an image that goes along with it, but obviously the textbook has the bulk of the information. Don't rely completely on these summary Google Slides. Rely more on reading the chapter and taking notes as you deem necessary. Let's take a look at the procedures for this assignment. There's 5 steps to these procedures, and the first one is all about accessing the Aerospace textbook. You just saw how to do that. You can do it through the link that's provided in the resources section or through this link right here in step 1. And of course, there's the PDF format. The entire book is one file, or the individual chapters with the bookmark capabilities. You also have access to the Google Slide summaries, multiple slides, lots of text, and it only gives a basic breakdown, so keep that in mind. Step 2 is all about reading the chapters. Start with chapter 1, read all the way through chapter 10. But after each chapter, you're going to move on to step 3, which we'll get to in a moment. Take notes because you're going to have a quiz at the end of each chapter. The notes that you take are at your own discretion. I don't care where you take them or how you take them, but I would highly encourage you for each of the major parts of the chapters to take down some notes. Think about the dates that are provided, the people that are discussed, the topics that are seeming to be the most important ones, but you can of course always come back to this information as you're taking that quiz. It's not intended to be hard, it's intended to prove your knowledge of what you've read. Be prepared to answer questions about the details of each chapter, and it's recommended that you take a look at each of the different parts of the chapter, though I'm not going to guarantee you that each time there will be questions from each part. There will be some questions that come from varying parts that aren't just in the Google Slides summaries. In each chapter, there's case studies, boxed articles or points of interest, your turn activities. You may choose not to do these, and that's understandable. Key terms that are in the margins of each chapter, I would highly encourage that you take a look at those. Plus you look at what's said about it in the paragraphs that you read. There's this stuff called STEM connections that show you how what you're currently reading about is connected to the different parts of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. There's career profiles, grass strip adventures. There's a really neat one in one of the chapters that has you go look for plans. These are neat things, but it may not lead you to the exact same location it's led people in the past to, because the plans in Russia have moved. Then of course there's summaries and extra mile stuff at the end of each chapter. They're useful, but the questions aren't going to come out of that information. If you want to go that extra mile and do some of those things, by all means, please do. The more you know going into this semester, the better. Step 3 is all about you accessing and taking the actual quizzes. So after each chapter, you're going to have to take a quiz for that chapter. I do not recommend that you read all 10 chapters and go take the quizzes back to back. Read a chapter, go take a quiz, try to do your best on it, then read the next chapter. If you pace this out, you should have plenty of time to read them, but you will probably want to read, especially early on, the chapters maybe on a Monday and then take the quiz on a Tuesday, or take the whole week to read a chapter and then take the quiz over the weekend if you need to. But keep in mind, 10 chapters, 10 quizzes. When you're accessing these quizzes, you must be logged into your DPS account. You're only going to be allowed one attempt, and it will automatically record your DPS email. Be sure that you know how to log into your DPS account through Google. This is what's going to tell me who has scored what on each of these quizzes. The chapter quizzes are 20 questions each for a total of 200 questions by the time you've taken all 10 of them. They are not hard quizzes. Chapter 1 quiz can be accessed through this hyperlink here. 2, 3, 4, all the way down through Chapter 10 quiz can be accessed through their individual hyperlinks. So you click on that link, it'll bring you to a quiz that looks similar to this. I have spent many hours putting these quizzes together, and I think I found any and all mistakes and typos. However, if you believe there is a mistake or a typo, let me know. I can update them quickly, but I don't think that just because you get it wrong, there's a mistake with it. So be mindful of that. I have also tried to provide you with questions that vary in their type, if you will. Some questions are multiple choice. Some have drop-down answers like these true-false ones. Some are open-ended. In this case, you may need to type in a single word, or maybe it's 2 words, or you have to type in a series of digits or some numbers. If it is a number one and you go to put in something that isn't a number, then it will tell you that, hopefully, that you need to put it in as just a number. Keep these things in mind as you go through. There are also on some of these questions that are multiple answer, multiple choice. Just because I provide that, though, does not mean that the answer is 2 different choices. It could still just be one of those possible choices, so pay close attention to it. Just because you see that you can provide more than one answer doesn't mean there is always more than one answer. You may also find that there's questions that say things like none of the above, or all of the above, or both, or neither. Again, I'm not novice at this. I'm not going to provide those for you and always have those as the answer. Don't fall for that trap that a lot of students fall for, where you see that it's none of the above or all of the above and you choose it because you're like, well, why would it be there if he doesn't expect us to pick that one? So make sure that you read it carefully. Sometimes it is all of the above, sometimes it is none of the above, sometimes it's both or neither if those are options, but not always. Now that really is the bulk of this assignment. It's read the chapter, maybe do some of the summary work if you need to, look at the different parts of the chapter, and then take a quiz. You get 1 attempt per quiz. So let's talk about this for a minute. Let's talk about number 4 procedure and number 5 procedure. Number 4, submit your assignment or quiz. When you've answered every question, press the submit button at the end. Each of these questions are required. If you go to hit submit, it's going to tell you that you have to answer these questions. You have to provide something. If you put in for one of these open-ended answers, something like this, and then you go to hit submit, as long as it expects that you are going to put in a text value, then it'll take it. It'll be wrong, but it'll take it. If you put in something that's text and it expects a number, it's going to tell you. And it's not going to count it as you having done that question. Take your time, answer these questions as best as you can, but you get 1 attempt for each quiz. When you're done with the quiz, you hit submit. Every one of these quizzes is worth 20 points. 1 point per question, 20 questions per quiz. That's a total of 200 points that are possible here. But this assignment is only worth 150 points. Total of 200 points available. Each quiz is worth 20 points. Each question is worth 1 point. This means you can get 50 questions wrong and still get a perfect score. There's a lot of questions. You need to get 150 of them correct to earn a perfect score. If you get more than 150 correct, in other words, if you have more than 150 points that you've earned, those extra points will be considered bonus points and will go into the tally of points that you've earned as opposed to the points that were possible. So you could earn 175 out of 150 points. That is possible. When it comes time for the semester to start up, we'll put it in that way and you'll start off with more than a 100 on this assignment. Good luck with it. Let me know if you have questions about this part. It should be pretty straightforward. It is a lot of reading. It is a lot of questions that you have to answer, but it'll bring you into this semester with a great background knowledge. Okay, I'm going to collapse this text to get it out of the way, and we'll talk about assignment 2, trim design challenges. Aircraft control is crucial if you're going to have a safe and effective flight. This introduction lays it out for you guys. This is all about you being able to make a paper airplane that can accomplish different challenges and still in the end be just as effective as it was when you started. Let's dive into these resources a little bit. There's quite a few more here than there were in the past, and some of these things you're going to have to provide on your own that I can't provide you over the summer. Aircraft control surfaces and components walkthrough video. This is a great video to watch. Let's click on it and find out what it does. It takes you straight to a YouTube video of the aircraft control surfaces and components slideshow. Typically, this would be a video that you'd watch in class, or this would be a PowerPoint presentation that we would go over in class. But I've provided it here for you, and I've done a couple of things that I think will help you get through it quicker if you need to. You should be able to find a view chapter feature right here, and I have chapterized each of the different major parts. There's a bunch of chapters. You can see them throughout the bar as well here. If there's something that you need to come back to and look at, it makes it real quick and easy for you to jump straight to that particular part. This video has two major parts to it. The part of it here, and you see that I've just about come to the end of it, is all about the different components and labeling them and showing them on an airplane, like in this section here or in this section here. Later on, the second half of this video, what you wind up finding is how some of those parts work, and then getting a good example of what they look like on various different types of airplanes. Potential starting designs is the next resource. Let's take a look at that one together. When you click on this link, you navigate to this website. It's a great website to go to. It gives you really good instructions on how to make a whole bunch of different paper airplanes. Your airplanes need to do various things, so find the most balanced airplane you can. I highly recommend that you click on them, read about them. There's everything from instructions to a video guide to downloading and printing the instructions as well. Lots of different options here. Very, very useful resource. And then I've also provided for you the new engineering design process. I want to say that this is exactly the same. And for the most part, it is. You're used to flowchart setup, but this is how PLTW is providing it now. It's just a PDF file. Print it out if you'd like. It's a good resource for you. It's just there to help you think about the processes that you're going through as you design your paper airplane and what you need to remember as the main steps. It's all the same steps. It's just not shown in a flowchart anymore. It's shown in this hexagon shape. Use it if you need to. Definitely get a copy of it saved somewhere so that you can start the semester with it. And then the remaining resources are things that you have to provide as the student. Pieces of paper, 8.5 by 11. That's what's required. We're talking about standard printer paper, just plain white paper. It does not have to be printer paper, but it does need to be as close to 8.5 by 11 as possible. Cardstock is okay if you feel like that's what you need to do. Construction paper is also okay if that's what you feel like you need to do. You may not want to go with something super heavy, but you may not want to go with something super light like notebook paper or transparency paper. Run some trials, do some tests. If you have access to multiple types of paper, awesome. Use that to your benefit. If not, just make sure you have access to a few different pieces of regular plain white paper. 2 horizontal bars. All this means is that you need to have tape stretched across, or 2 brooms, or something that you can identify as being a horizontal line that you can go over and under as necessary. Just make sure that you can have these separated by a bit of distance. Anything that you can suspend 3 feet off the ground, totally fine. If you have questions about it, definitely ask me. You need to be able to measure things, so having some type of measuring device is also useful here. Some sort of yardstick, measuring tape, ruler, even those pieces of paper laid one after the other. It's roughly 12 inches for each one. Pace things out with these measuring devices and know where to stand. So that's why they're useful. Try to stay within those confines of those boundaries as much as possible. There's going to be a couple of challenges where you have to throw things over a particular height or set them a particular distance away from another device or another object. So make sure that you do have a way to measure, and just be prepared to talk about that or discuss it as part of your presentation. Speaking of that, you need to have some type of device that can take pictures and or record video. Best thing here is a smartphone. If you got to borrow one from a parent or a sibling, awesome. Most of you will have one as well. Let me know if there is an issue with this and we can work around that. But the idea here is that you're going to make a multimedia presentation. So having some sort of recording device is going to be very, very critical for you, even if it is just something that takes pictures. But it would be ideal if you can do video as well. All right, those are the resources. Let's get into the procedure for assignment number 2, Trim Design Challenge. This is a bit longer. There's quite a few steps to this procedure, but it is pretty straightforward once you start to understand it. First thing, gather the necessary materials and research paper airplane designs. That's a hyperlink. If you click on it, it takes you to the same place that you go to under the resources when you click on potential starting designs. Use the engineering design process to design and build 2 paper airplanes that will complete each of the flight challenges below, while applying the following constraints and procedure steps. Constraints. Your aircraft must be propelled with the motion of your hand while you stand on the ground, not squat, not sit, stand, at your designated launch position. You have to be able to throw the paper airplane. What we don't want you to do is squat or bend over or crouch or sit or try to rig this up so that you don't have to get your paper airplane to use the trim tabs. Your aircraft has to be made from a single sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper. If that paper becomes damaged or you determine that it's not usable again, you can make a new one. You can use a new sheet of paper, but you have to restart your flight challenges from the very beginning. So the 4th constraint, since you can't control your airplane after it's been launched, it has to be designed so that the trim characteristics are established by bending or folding the paper without tearing it. Those are the constraints that your design for these challenges has to work within. These are the steps that you have to take within those challenges. You have to document your design process and flight performance observations. Be prepared to explain your process and justify the decisions that you made. Now, how you document those are up to you, but in the end, we need to see this information as part of your presentation. This could be something that you do on notebook paper, or you have a little journal, or you do this using Google Docs, or you're recording it directly into a table that you create on a Google slide presentation that you already have set up by the time you start your launches. This is up to you. Be as efficient as you feel like you need to be and make it part of what you show us. Each attempt must be documented. The landing position, flight path, changes you made, as well as being filmed or photographed, hopefully filmed. These clips should be used as part of your presentation. We need to see what these attempts are. Preferably a video of a successful run would be the next thing that you do. It must be taken before moving to the next challenge. So do challenge 1, have a video of everything, have a video of you launching it, a video of it being successful, recordings of all of the different trial runs that you did to try and complete challenge 1, and then move on to the next challenge. Only after you have succeeded at the previous challenge should you move on to the next one. And part of that is a short review of the process. It must also be documented before you move on to the next challenge. So we have document your design process and flight performance. Each attempt must be documented. Landing position, flight path, changes made. A video of the successful run at minimum should be filmed. If you can film, preferably filmed, possibly photographed, but you gotta take a lot of pictures of it and show it in progression. You want to be as descriptive as possible, so having a short review of the process that you took is also something that you should do. Every time you move on to the next challenge, you should have finished the one before. Procedure 3 for this assignment: perform the challenges in the sequence that you see below. Challenge 1. The aircraft must fly from the launch position to an area marked at 30 feet away and above 42 inches from the ground. This means you need to be standing on the same ground at which you have deemed is the 30-foot distance and 42 inches above that. You're here, you launch, your airplane must be 42 inches above the ground when it gets 30 feet away from where you are. It cannot be that you're on a balcony and you throw your airplane. It cannot be that you're sitting down low and you throw your airplane up high. You must be standing on the ground, throw your airplane. Now, You can throw your airplane down and it dive at the ground and come up. Can't touch the ground, but it dives at the ground and comes up, and it clears 42 inches when it's 30 feet away. That's fine. It's not very efficient, but that's fine. Ideally, you would throw your airplane out and it would stay aloft and reach 30 feet and still be 42 inches above the ground. Challenge 2. The aircraft must fly from the launch position to 3 feet away and turn 90 degrees to the left. Not to the right, to the left. The idea here is that you throw your airplane, it goes in a straight path, banks to the left, pretty close to a 90-degree turn. Obviously, there's going to be some banking. It's going to happen so quick that you're going to see the airplane roll and turn, and it's probably going to want to do more than 90 degrees. But you want to try and get it to fly straight out, turn, and go left. That's the intent. Challenge 3. The aircraft must fly from the launch position to pass under the first horizontal bar, positioned 3 feet from the launch position and 3 feet above the ground. Then the aircraft has to continue to fly over the next bar, located approximately 3 feet from the first horizontal bar and approximately 3 feet above the ground. The bars may be anything that meet the criteria that's listed above. You're standing here. You throw your paper airplane and it has to go under the first bar, over the second bar. From where you're standing, the first bar must be 3 feet away and 3 feet off the ground. You have to be standing on the same ground that you're measuring 3 feet above for that bar. The next bar is another 3 feet away. Ideally, you would toss your airplane down. It would go down and back up within that 3-foot gap between the two bars. Down in the first gap between you and the bar, back up between the two bars, and over the top of the next one. Doesn't matter how far it goes, doesn't matter how high it gets, as long as it goes under the first bar and over the second bar. If it's tape, it can't stick to the tape. It shouldn't hit the tape, but I get it. If that's the best you can do, be sure you talk about that. You'll probably take a couple attempts to do this, but be prepared to not squat, not sit. Don't bend over and say, I'm not squatting. Just stand and throw it. Challenge 4, do challenge 1 again. Your airplane, after you have done all the things that you need to do to it to complete challenge 2 and 3, you need to be able to get it back into a position where you complete challenge 1 again. You need to be able to use that airplane in a way that doesn't damage it to complete each of these challenges, and then prove that it's not damaged by completing challenge 1 again. Tough challenges. Probably going to take quite a few trials. Be sure you document each trial for each challenge. And part of what you're doing is also a review of the information that you've collected, or a reflection. Number 4 for this entire assignment is to reflect on your experience by documenting your answers to these questions. In the end, these need to be provided as part of your presentation. If you were to coach another student, what advice would you share with the student who's struggling to complete a particular challenge? What did you think was the toughest thing, and what did you do to overcome it? What would you describe as an important consideration to design an effective trim feature? What would you think someone would need to know is important about the way the paper's folded, or how it's creased or not creased? Is it bent slightly? Do you need to make huge changes or small changes? Should you test, change, or run a whole bunch of tests, make minor changes, and run more tests to see if over time things work out better? How would you approach a similar challenge in the future to apply the design process more efficiently? This is a trickier question. I'm looking for you to tell me, how would you think of a challenge now that you've gone through it in a different way? How would you utilize that design process so that you could complete a challenge more effectively? How can you take the design process, use it as efficiently as possible to make these challenges easier? That's a couple of different ways to think about this question. Let's see what you come up with. So at this point, you've done some research on various different airplanes, picked 2 that you think will work really well, and run them through different challenges. Each one of those airplanes has gone through each of these challenges. You've even thought about some reflection questions when you've gotten to the end of those challenges with your airplanes. So 2 airplanes, 4 challenges, 3 reflection questions, and documentation of the entire process. Now you have to create a multimedia presentation using Google Slides that has the following things: a script, an audio or video, some sort of voiceover of what you're doing. If there is a video on your slide and it has audio to it and you're explaining what's going on, no need for an audio clip or a voiceover. If there is no video and it's just a slide of information, at minimum, you need to have an audio clip or a voiceover that tells us what we're seeing on that slide. Create a script in the notes section for your Google Slides and use that script when you're either recording an audio clip or a voiceover, or even if it's something like what I'm doing right here where you have picture-in-picture type setup. You need to have a title slide. Appropriate name for the presentation should be provided. I would go with something like Trim Design Challenge, or if you want to throw in something fancier dealing with the type of airplanes you selected, great. Your first and last names need to be provided, and an image that illustrates this particular assignment. It needs to be appropriate, it needs to make sense. I shouldn't look at the image and say, well, this doesn't make any sense at all. If you question whether or not it makes sense, it probably doesn't, and you should find a different image. Then you're going to have design slides. On these design slides, you need to have clear photos of the paper airplanes that you chose to make. Please only provide the ones that you successfully utilized, but it doesn't hurt if, as part of your process that you're explaining, you show videos of ones that didn't work or pictures of ones that didn't work, if that in fact is the case for you. You need to label the components and control surfaces of those 2 different paper airplanes. Reference the walkthrough video, the presentation that I went through with you as part of the resources at the beginning of this assignment. Then you have challenge slides. You need to have a flight log, and each flight that you conduct, every throw that you make or that you take, should have its results recorded. There should be some type of table or spreadsheet that's part of your presentation where you've recorded this stuff, and that is something that is vital. So make sure you keep up with it and you provide it. Some students have asked in the past, do I have to constantly be recording? Yes, as much as you can, as much as you need to record the information that you collect as you run through these tests. And then think about the adjustments and an explanation for why those adjustments were made. What changes did you make and why did you make them? How did the change affect the flight path? How or what resulted in success? How did that happen? Why did that happen, to the best of your knowledge? So these are the adjustments that you make in the explanation. Then have a video of a successful attempt. Embedded within the slide would be the best way of doing this, because if I have to click on something that takes me out to another place, I may not have access to it, it may not work, you might think that it does, then I get it, and I can't see the video. So we've got your flight log as part of your challenge slide, some sort of small text or audio clip or video clip that tells us about the adjustments and explanation of what changes you made and why, how they changed the flight path, and what resulted in the most successful flights and why. And then a video that shows that most successful one. In the end, you need to have part of your challenge slides a comparison of the 2 different paper airplane designs. You need to show if the flight paths were similar, why were they similar? Do you have a good reasoning for why? Were the airplane designs themselves similar? Were the same adjustments made to the trim surfaces of those airplanes, or did you have to do something completely different? What effect did different differences in approach and design have on the successfulness or failures of these different designs? This does not have to be all on one slide. Your design slides might take 2, 3, 4 slides. Your challenge slides might take 2, 3, 4 slides as well for each of the designed airplanes that you have. Then you need to have some conclusion slides at the end. What did you learn? How did this help with your understanding of flight stability, control, and maneuverability, all discussed as part of that walkthrough video? What went well? Overall, do you think you, as the person creating these, did well? What could be improved? Why do you think that? Overall, what do you think you need to approach in a different way if you were to do this again? It's all about the reflection of it. If you are unable to be successful with each and every challenge, it's going to happen to someone. Okay, maybe it's you. I'm more interested in your approach to this, in your ability to follow through, and your ability to reflect and understand what happened and why it happened, or at least to the best of your knowledge. Don't get stuck on the fact that you couldn't complete the fourth challenge with your second plane. If it doesn't work and you try a new design and you go through all of them and you get stuck on that fourth challenge again and again, don't just keep going. Stop, think about it for a second, but then move on to the next plane. Try it, see if it worked. Compare those two designs whenever you're going through this process. And yeah, you just were not successful with the fourth challenge. It's unfortunate, but that's the case. You don't want to run out of time. So build your process up as you're going through it. Make sure that this procedure, this process is documented well. And if in the end you still have time to go back and try that challenge one more time, or all four of those challenges again and record some of that documentation, great. Build that in as part of this presentation as well. But don't get bogged down with the fact that you were unsuccessful. Just because you weren't successful with a particular challenge doesn't mean you can't be successful with this assignment. This brings us to the last two procedures: submitting your assignment and the points that this assignment is worth. When you go to submit this assignment, it's different than the first assignment. You have to name the file of this Google slide. You need to name it with a particular naming scheme. Make sure that you name it as AE_assignment 2, first name, last name, that's your first name and your last name with an underscore after that. Trim design challenges. Now, this is important that you name it this way because it's going to be easy for me to find it. Then make sure that it and anything else that needs to be embedded within it is shared with me. So if this means you're creating a Google Drive folder, share that folder with me. If that folder has the documents in it that I need to access because you couldn't figure out how to get a video embedded, or because even when it is embedded, it still requires it to be shared with me, whatever the case may be, make sure I have access to it. Share your Google slide with me, click the share button, add Adam_Davidson@dpsnc.net. That's my email address. Make sure I have editing level rights, not just view, not just comment, editing level rights. To be safe, copy the link and then send it to me in an email as well. Not only is that doubling your chances that you did it correctly, but if it's incorrect and I go to click on that thing, and yeah, that means I have two emails, one from when you shared it correctly, hopefully, and one from when you sent me the email. But if I click on either of those links, it'll let me know that one, you turned it in, and two, you did it right. Therefore, before the semester starts up, I can touch base with you and say, hey, this didn't work. I need you to fix the share properties of it. Make sure that I have those editing level rights. Double check before you turn this in. Heck, triple check before you turn this in that I have those editing level rights and that you have put me in as a shared person. And I would recommend sending me an email with the link to it. This assignment is worth 100 points. Points will be awarded for how well you followed directions. That's the procedures that you see here, as well as the constraints and procedures for each of the challenges. The level of engagement and quality of your multimedia presentation. Is there too much text? Is there just the right amount of text? Are there a lot of videos that are descriptive, or are they very low quality videos and they don't really show me much, or it doesn't capture what the airplane is doing? I'm not just going to take your word for it. If I can't tell in your video, it's not worth it. I also want to point out that if you're going to do audio clips as opposed to some sort of video, make sure that you are explaining things in a concise way. So that narrative and what you put in those notes at the bottom of the slides is going to be very, very useful here. level of engagement that I can have with it without having to read a bunch of text on the screen. That's what I'm talking about. It's multimedia, not just text. And the quality of the videos and images, the audio clips, the voiceover, and your grammar is going to be important. And then, did you submit it with no errors? If we get to the start of the school year and I can't access things, once I do get access to it, you're going to lose points because you didn't submit it properly. If you submit it to me and it's early enough, and I can get back in touch with you and say, hey, you got about a week. Make sure you fix this before then. That's fine. When I go to assess this, I need to make sure that there's nothing wrong with it, or you're going to lose points. That's this assignment. I'm going to share with you, as part of this overview, as part of this tutorial, an example PowerPoint from two students who worked together as part of this assignment in class during the past semester. I hope it makes sense to you. If you don't want to watch that, stop the video now. If you do want to watch it, I'm going to walk through that video just to give you some advice based on what we learned from how they followed through with this assignment. In the past, we've provided this as an assignment during class. We're doing it as a summer assignment to help you move through this information a little quicker. So you can see that not only are they providing their title slide, but then slides that give us information about what we're going to be looking at next. There's pictures of their designs as well as some videos of them too. There's even the comparison slide as well. Notice that they've labeled using Google Slides the control surfaces that were most important for each of the two designs. In this case, each student had to come up with their own design. You have to come up with two designs so you can compare your two different designs together. Then they broke down their presentation by challenges. Challenge 1, here are Aiden's flights, each of his trials, the distances they went, his thoughts on this, the adjustments in the design as he moved forward with the different trials. Notice that he didn't make adjustments each time, so he doesn't have reasoning for each adjustment. He threw it, he didn't make a change, he tried it again, then he made a change. He talked about why he felt that change was important, then he didn't make a change. Then he did, then he did, and then he didn't. Get a sense of how this is done. It's laid out real nice. It's a great design to the background as well. It looks good. Then he has a video. Now, the intent to this is that it's fun, okay? Yes, it's a lot of data collection, but you should enjoy this. You just read an entire textbook over the summer and created 2 different paper airplane designs and collected a bunch of flight data from them. Have some fun with it. Enjoy it. Although you may not be able to hear his video, this is what it looks like. Notice he's got his camera set up in such a way that you can see everything that's happening. Look how excited he is. And then he even takes his camera and carries it over, shows me where the marks are. And where his paper airplane landed. That's a little jumpy, it's a little nauseating, honestly, but it was useful. It helped explain what was going on. Here you can see Dorian's, does the same thing, has the recordings. Challenge 2, same thing, has the recordings for Aiden and video of it. Recording, video. Challenge 3, same thing over and over again. You'll notice that with Aiden, some of his took so many trials, so many attempts, that he couldn't fit it on with the same slide with the video. Dorian never really ran into this problem, and in this case, his first one was a successful flight. For the 4th challenge, it took Aiden 30 attempts for the 4th challenge. So to get it to go that distance one last time after making all those changes did take him quite a bit of time. And then, of course, he has his video for it as well. They don't have audio clips because they do explain things in the video, and that was sufficient enough. You may need to provide, say on a slide like this, an audio clip that breaks this down for me. I don't want to look at this slide and have to read a bunch of it. I want to hear from you, and I want you to embed those audio clips in here to the best of your ability. and if you need to, a video that tells me about your final comparison. You guys are great at social media. I'm sure you'll be able to figure out a way to make this work. They even have a conclusion slide, and you may notice that each of these has little notes in here as well. They provided this presentation as something they did in class, so these notes down at the bottom were something that they could read from or reference back to whenever they did present this. I hope this helped you understand how this assignment works. I hope this entire video has helped you understand how both assignments for your summer assignment are set up and how they should function. Please let me know if you have any questions and try to have this all done by the start of the school year. Talk to you soon.